Welcome to the Modus Edge, where we celebrate business, primarily youth sports facility management, leadership, and motivation. Co-hosted by Stacy Rowe, Cole Stott, Kevin Brubaker, and Casey Jones. We are here to fill your cup with knowledge, laughter, affirmations, and comfort knowing that you're not alone. You can and will succeed with the Modus Edge.
What's up, everybody? We are back with another fabulous episode of the Modus Edge podcast. Today, it is the crew minus Cole Stott. So it's me, Casey, and Kevin. I am going to have to try to, play the mediator between the two of them on this entire podcast.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, me neither. We just do whatever you say, Stacy, unless Casey gets in my way and needs to be quiet. But for the most part, yes.
Oh, goodness gracious. You two, I'll tell you.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day, unless it's raining today. We don't know because today hasn't actually happened. So hopefully it's a beautiful day.
It's almost time to go back to school for everybody. So.
Oh, yes. Team selections are done. You have survived. It's amazing. And you are in the process of probably doing skills camp, maybe starting choreography. Maybe some of you have finished all of that. Summer is on the way of winding down. So what does that mean, gang? What's next?
I can remember I'm not in the gym as much as I used to be, but I can remember summers being so crazy because we start summer camp at 8 a.m. and camps are half day, full day, go till 5 o'clock. All of our all-star teams, gymnastics teams, classes are still in the evening. And so it's just an exhausting day because you go from 8 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, 6 days a week. And, we do a million birthday parties on Sunday. It's just summers are long, especially for the people that are at the gym.
I remember Kevin having this parent one time. I haven't done one of those summer days in a really long time, but you're not wrong. And for anybody out there that doesn't know, a lot of coaches, gym owners in the summertime, it is a 12-hour, 13-hour day every day, 6 days a week, a lot of the times, in the summertime, and it's exhausting. And I remember this one mom, I used to do private lessons with her daughter. This was probably 2 decades ago. And summertime came and I was like, I basically had sent out an email like, I have these few private time slots. That's it. And it was like Wednesday night for 2 hours in a row. So 4 privates, and that was all I could do. And I remember this mom getting so angry with me and saying that like, I didn't want to do private lessons with her kid. And she was like, I will offer you, at the time, I think private lessons were $20 for a half hour, or something like that back in the day. I will offer you $200 if you will do this private lesson with my child. And I know you have time and blah, blah, blah. And you just don't want to do a private lesson with my kid. And I was like, ma'am, you could pay me $1 million. I have one 30-minute break in my day and I am not doing a private lesson. Like, I'm sorry. I love you. I love your kid, but that I need to eat. Like at some point in time, I got to put some food in my mouth because call me crazy, but I need to have food.
Take the 200. I would have to skip lunch.
I'm thinking about how many meals I could have bought with that 200. I think I would have Stacy. So.
I wanted that 30 minutes, man. I needed that 30 minutes. I don't know. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I will be glad to have set you up with somebody else. And she just wanted me to do the private lesson. And I'm like, well, then you're going to have to wait until September. Sorry.
When I think about food and money, when I started the gym, this is 36 years ago, I had no money. I was so broke. I was in graduate school and I was paying my college loans. And we had a place called Hot and Now, and you could get 3 hamburgers for $1. And they were, I used to get every day, I would get 3 of those bad boys and eat one for lunch and one in the middle break in the afternoon and one in the evening. And it was pretty amazing. So I'm thinking of $200, I could have got 600 burgers at Hot and Now back in the day. So you ever hear of Hot and Now?
That's a little bit excessive. And I've never heard of Hot and Now. Is that in Wyoming?
No, it's in Charlotte. So it was a little burger place.
Oh yeah, that's right. Duh.
I remember Arby's 5 for $5.
Yes.
Same thing. You go get 5 roast beef sandwiches for $5, and that was 2 days worth of food.
Good stuff.
What was that? I used to do the Taco Bell. There was like a Taco Bell big one that you get like 12 tacos and nachos and yes, and it was that was a lot of food too for like under $10.
Yeah.
So that's our advice, guys, for leading into
Hot now, Arby's and Taco
Yes.
Bell.
That's what you got to do to have a successful gym business.
Yep.
Is eat at one of those 3 places. You should be good. Thanks for joining us today. Like we got nothing else.
That was the advice I would have given in my 20s. Now that I'm not in my 20s, I would say, please don't eat any of that food. It's sludge for your gut. It's awful. Don't eat it.
Yeah, and it's going to cost you even more money later in life. So.
Correct.
That is a true statement.
Plant some tomatoes in your backyard if you have to, but fruits and veggies, people, fruits and veggies.
Well, in all seriousness, this time of year is vastly different than it was 20 years ago. Summers are shorter. A lot of our country school system is on what's called year-round school, which keeps summer at about 8 weeks. So now you've got to pack in what used to be 12 weeks of summer into 8 weeks. And then you cut out a week of 4th of July, usually, because most gyms are closed or closed for a portion of that. So then it really drops you down to about 7 weeks to cram all of these things in of skills camp and choreography and different things like that. And, the reality of what we're doing today in All-Star Cheer is vastly different than what we were doing 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
The level of competition is a lot higher. So the skills that the kids are performing and the execution that they have to perform them at is a lot higher. But there again, I do think that changes the skill building, because now you pick a team based on the skills that they have and that they can perform right there on tryout day. Typically, that's, I think, what most programs are doing, because that's what you have to do in today's cheerleading environment.
Right. Yeah.
So, I've seen that the skills camps have morphed more into, hey, now we have to work on the execution of the skills that you can already do, as opposed to teaching you skills that you can't do. And once again, that's pretty vague. Don't get me wrong. It's not like every team walks in and they can do everything that they need to do, but they can do a lot of it. So,
well, and I'll add to that too, Casey. I think part of that is when you look at the score sheet or what skills you have to be elite or be at the high level. I think a lot of people make the mistake of focusing on the harder part of those skills to be able to score at the highest level, when that's not reality. You can do the easier part of the high level and still score really well if it's perfected and looks good and done well. And so those different skills, if there's 6 or 7 of them, you don't have to do all 6 or 7 of them. You do enough to be able to score at that high range. And as long as it's perfect and done really well, execution-wise, you can score really well despite the difficulty.
Well, that's a great point, because what may be hard for your team might not be as hard for a different team. So that's
Right.
also evaluating your team, choosing their strengths and weaknesses. And then basically, how do we take their strengths and show those? And I know I used to make that mistake all the time as a coach. And man, we got to focus on the weakness and make the weakness better. Like, we're not a strong tumbling team, so let's really focus on this tumbling and working on that. And then lo and behold, we would be a mediocre tumbling team, and we would work our way down from a great stunning team to a mediocre stunning team, because all I did was focus on what we weren't good at.
I know some of the things that I used to do. This is less technical, but just more thinking like big picture and kind of after the summer. I always used to do like a get together with the staff at the end of the summer to celebrate that we survived summer and all the things, because many people were working those 13-hour days. And so we always used to do just like a party to kind of pat everybody on the back and celebrate. I think the staff used to really look forward to that. And then one of the things that I started doing for the kids as well, because I think the transition from summer into the school year, is easier. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not easier for the older kids, but I feel like it's a little easier for the older kids. But the little ones, especially, like I remember when my kids were young, man, when they started back to school, it'd be nothing for them to come home and just, they would pass out on the couch for like 5 hours. And yes. And you're trying to wake them up to get them to, to get up for dinner. And it's not like, we always did the whole regiment of like, okay, school starting in a couple weeks, like got to get go to bed early, get up early, like, because you get off. I mean, all families get off their schedule in the summertime, right?
Right.
So we started kind of giving the kids like an optional, like the week that school started back, excuse me, became an optional practice week. So we had practice and kids could come and they could train, if they wanted to, and the coaches would be there to, mostly do workouts and tumbling and that kind of thing. But we made it optional because we just felt like the kids, especially the younger ones, they just needed that like pause for a minute to kind of reset their schedule and just get reacclimated. And I found that the parents really appreciated that.
That's actually a great idea.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. That's pretty awesome.
However, if I propose that to the coaches at the Stingray All-Stars,
right, they would stick a fork in your eye because they're like, every minute of practice, but how many of them have watched their 7-year-old crash on the couch for 5 hours? I only started doing that after I had kids, and I was like,
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. But I get it. I mean, so that may not work for every gym, but I do think the parents appreciate it. I actually was talking to one of our gymnastics coaches the other day, and gymnastics, man, they are like, they don't take a minute off. Like if they could have practice on Christmas Day, they would, I'm telling you what. And she has started doing the same thing and not having practice that week because she just feels like the kids need a minute to breathe.
I love the fact that what you said, that with your own children, you would start preparing a couple weeks early. Because in my household, we would talk about doing that, but we would never do it. So
we would actually do that, Stacy. I can remember when the girls were younger, we would prepare, going into August, which is right around the corner, preparing for them to go to bed a little bit earlier, finding out that they would wake up a little bit earlier, instead of waking up at 11, they might wake up at 9:30 or 10, knowing the next week they're getting up at 6:30, kind of thing. So just try to transition that. But as they got older,
to be clear, I did not wake my kids up at 6:30 on a day that they didn't have to be up. But
yes,
but we did start shifting into the different bedtime and wake up cycles for sure.
Yeah. Y'all are really good parents, and
no. I think we are all just trying to do the best that we can, right? Every single day.
So our oldest daughter, Emily, we tried with her, and it became, I remember this, just like, goodness gracious, her and her mother used to fight so much, and getting ready to, they fight when she was getting ready for school, and then they fight when she got out of school. It says middle school, rough years. And then I finally implemented some new rule. I stepped in because I was tired of the fighting, and I very rarely step in. Heather does a way better job than I do, but I was like, listen, Emily, these are the rules. Go to bed when you want to go to bed. Eat when you want to eat. Do all those things, but your grades need to be great, and do not miss the bus. Those are the 2 rules. And then smooth sailing for her, because she didn't want to fit inside the box. So she would, stay up late, but she'd make sure she got up on time, and then she'd come home and take a nap. And so
it's pretty funny.
Pretty much the other 4 kids after that, we've ignored them ever since and let them do what they want to do. And
I think
two jail sentences later. So
right.
Exactly.
So we joke around at the Rowe household that the things I'm still finding out all of the things that have occurred in my home while I was out of town traveling. So there were many, many years of our kids growing up that Chris or I, we would talk about how we were like a revolving door. We'd high five. One parent would be coming in and the other parent would be going out, because our trips would, we very seldom tried to be traveling for work at the same time. And in order to do that, we had to fit everything in like a puzzle piece. And so very few days at home together because one of us was traveling. And so, yeah, when my kids were home with their dad by themselves, one time they took the bed sheets off of their bed and tied them together, broke the screen out of the window. And it was like a 15-foot window. And my daughter, who was the gymnast, like scaled down the house with the bed sheets. She tied the bed sheet around her brother, who was 4 at the time, and she was 6. So she tied the bed sheet around her brother and realized that like he wasn't going to be strong enough to hold her. So then she tied the bed sheet around the like the nightstand, made her brother stand on the nightstand. So now it was tied around the nightstand and her brother. And this is her describing this to me. She gets out of the window and she like tugs and it's like, okay, I'm good. And then she like scaled down the house. Meanwhile, all of this is happening because we were renting this house. This is when we first moved to Knoxville. It was not our home that we owned. And it was 3 stories. So there was like a basement level and then, the main level and then the upstairs level. And the kids apparently wanted to watch like Little Mermaid or something like that. And they had been pestering Chris all day to watch it. So he finally goes downstairs to the basement level to watch The Little Mermaid with them. And according to Chris, after like 30 minutes, they got bored and he was being stubborn, Chris, and was like, well, you guys wanted to watch this movie. So I'm going to sit here and watch this movie. So he sat by himself in the basement and finished watching The Little Mermaid. Meanwhile, the kids had like locked themselves in the bedroom upstairs and thought that the best plan was to scale the window down the bedroom. And now I can see my husband's boring eyes staring into my head as I tell the world this story.
I could do an entire podcast over the lies that my children have told me. Well, that they just call it withholding information. I call it lying, but
yeah,
right.
Of course, I never did that with my parents, so I'm shocked.
No,
when I hear
I didn't
that
either.
I did. I was totally honest about everything and never did anything I shouldn't have done. I was the perfect angel, absolutely, without a question.
So I don't even know what this podcast is about because I have so many stories from my childhood.
I was just going to say, we veered so far off the path. So we are supposed to be talking about wrapping up the summer and moving into fall. Oh, goodness gracious. I think that it is easy as, I am the worst about what's next. Let's go. Do all the things. You guys know this. Like I feel like, I never want to stop. And as soon as I check something off the list, I don't take a moment to pause. But I think that it's important, especially after, all of the craziness of summer going into the fall and kind of gearing up for that, to take a moment to pause, reflect on your summer, take a minute for yourself. It's okay to do those things. I'm telling that to everyone as I tell it to myself, because I'm trying to learn to do better about that as well.
Well, I'll brag about Kendall for a second. So I speak of her. She's our GM, Kendall Seymour. She's amazing. You guys know her. Thank goodness. I mean, every gym needs a Kendall, and I'm thankful for her. One of the things that I love about what she does is she does the year of planning literally on paper for all of our teams. They follow this format. So we just finished up Camp Purple. We're in the middle of choreography for different teams, but what they did when they started over in May and what they did in June and the videos they're doing, the things that they're working on as a team to get better, and what the plan is on when they start doing routines in August and what that looks like to be full out in September, to get ready for showcase in October or November, to get ready for the first competition. I'm not saying every team is the same, but it's pretty darn similar that they have this format of what they're doing, and it's written down and it's tweaked every year. But if you're going at this blindly going into the fall and you're just hoping you're going to be able to hit routines coming up at showcase or first competition, I just don't think that's reality. But if you're writing things down and you have a plan, and the best part, they share the plan with the kids, they share it with the parents, they're all on the same page of what the expectation is moving forward. And so I think our staff has really bought into what that looks like. Literally every practice, they write it out on a whiteboard. So the kids, they love to be able to check off the things they're doing in practice, whether it's 3 minutes.
A whiteboard. I've never heard it called that before.
What's it called?
A whiteboard?
No, but you wipe the things off. It's a whiteboard.
I know.
Okay.
A whiteboard. All right. So make sure everyone go out and get your whiteboard.
Anyway, the kids like it. The coach writing things on it. They check the things off, but every practice. And so I just feel like Charlotte All-Stars, because of Kendall, is really good at writing out the format and the plan, literally from day one all the way through Worlds and Summit, and literally what they're doing every practice. It just makes things more effective to be on the same page.
That's awesome.
For all of our listeners, that's actually a dry erase board, and you can check my TikTok link. I'm selling those on there on my TikTok shop. Now, Kevin makes a great point on the planning, though. Like, if you're in the summer and you didn't prepare for the summer back in January, then you are not prepared for the summer.
That's right.
If you haven't booked your choreographers and set your dates and all that. So The reality is, at bare minimum, you're working 6 months ahead, and we're blessed.
So right now, I'm sorry, Casey, I didn't mean to cut you off, but so right now you want to make a note in your calendar that in January you want to start planning for your summer. So that when January rolls around in 2026, you're planning for your summer. Go ahead, Casey.
Well, no, I think it absolutely imperative. And then as you're going through these things, another thing to remember is like, okay, we just came off of stunt camp. Let's immediately decide what went well and what didn't go well and what we need to do for next year, and get that written down. Make sure that has a home so that you can remember. I am terrible at those. And, Kevin mentions Kindle, but we have some awesome people, in our organization, Allie and Emily and Roger and a whole nother management team, and Ashley, and they help coordinate all of these things and help make sure that we're documenting all of these things so that they can get better every year.
That's right.
Yeah, it's so important. And I'm a systems and processes girly. So pick your system and process for that, whatever it is, whatever tool you use. Maybe it's just sending an email to yourself. Maybe it's a notebook where you write it all down, but whatever it is, and use that same method every time to keep those notes. And then exactly where to go back to find them when the time comes. And it is important that you do it immediately, because if you don't connect with those things right after the camp is over and write them down right then you're not going to remember a year later when you're getting ready to do the camp the next year what you wanted to do better. So you have to, you write it down, you go back and look for it. My problem is I put it in a safe place sometimes and I forget where I put it.
It's so safe you can't find it.
Correct. And so that's why it's important to do the same thing every time, whatever that is. I mean, there's no right way to do it, but just whatever your method is. And that's great advice.
I think the thing that always comes to mind for me is tryouts, because tryouts are so long, so hard, so many hours, and everybody's just dead after that. Coaches, directors, everybody. Then you don't want to spend that time to document what you need to. And then every time next year we'd have to spend a couple weeks kind of putting last year's tryouts back together, because it was a year ago, and we would forget what we needed to change. So,
part of that too, Casey, is tryouts, or we call it evaluations, is in the month of craziness. We're coming back in May from Worlds and Summit and the One or All-Star Worlds, and you just did this crazy month of May. You just did all your banquets. You just finished up your season. You're going right into signups, evaluations, picking teams. I mean, it is a crazy month that we're all living. And you got to get them picked so you can start paying June tuition, So it's all of that is such a whirlwind if you're not organized and you don't have that stuff written down. And we do a big team selection that was way back in, I think, early June this past summer. And literally when we're done, we got 20 coaches sitting there. We just got done with this huge purple premiere. It was awesome. And Kendall says, okay, give me 3 things we need to do better next year to make this better. We're like, goodness, we just want to go home, So, but we're not going to meet again and talk about this anytime soon. So it is pretty effective to do it after the event, and she documents that stuff. It's pretty awesome for our future.
That's great. Well, Stacy nailed it. It's systems, and that's the thing, guys. I mean, it keeps you from having to reinvent the wheel. There's so many challenges and so many hard things, end of season events and tryouts and choreography. And these are things that take a lot of time and they take a lot of planning. But once you've done it, if you document it and you start to create a system, and then to your point, Kevin, then, hey, let's do 3 things better instead of let's try to remember and piece this back together and recreate it every single year. That's where I used to fail, is I would get through it. I would survive it. And then, a year later, I would have to recreate it from scratch because it was all gone out of my brain. Like I said, luckily I've always had great people around me that have a little bit better memory and better focus on details, but still, we're even better. We're even better now. So
yeah,
systems are.
And all of this applies, whether you're running all-star cheerleading or all-star dance. Obviously I've had a lot of dance teams in my day as well. And I think that all of this is the same, all the planning, getting ahead, making sure you have the processes to make the notes afterwards and, all the things. I think it applies to both. And speaking about dance, give your dancers the best competition experience when they attend a Stage 8 Dance Brands event. Stage 8 Dance Brands is by dancers for dancers. Also, don't miss out on your chance to attend Stage 8 Dance Nationals, renamed Stage 8 Grand Finale. It's an awesome way to end your season. For more information, go to stage8dancebrands.com. That's STAGE, the number 8, DANCEBRANDS.com, stage8dancebrands.com.
That's a lot of spelling right
Or
there.
just
It really
call
is.
Cheryl.
It really is.
Call Cheryl, call Jana. They'll make it right for you. There's some good people over there.
Yep.
They are good people and they know what they're doing.
That's for sure.
I think it's time for my dad joke, right?
I think it is time.
All right.
Boy.
What was the child who would not nap guilty of? What was the child who would not nap guilty of, other than being any of the Jones children?
I don't know.
Resisting arrest.
Oh, too
That's pretty funny.
Hey, y'all be sure to send us your favorite dad jokes so we can share them on the show and give you a shout out. We love when you guys send us some jokes.
Yeah.
So send us your favorite dad joke.
We do have some good submissions we'll be sharing in the next couple podcasts for sure.
Awesome.
My kids were good nappers, seeing how we've been talking about our kids on this episode. I feel like for the most part, my kids were good. They were good nappers.
I'm a good napper.
I'm a really good napper. I agree. I wish I could.
Speaking of naps,
I wish I could take more naps.
Since we're getting off topic today and talking about everything not cheerleading,
Since we can't stay on topic.
Let's talk about the art of a caffeine car nap. That is like one of my favorite things. Go through Starbucks, Quick Trip, grab a coffee, get some caffeine in you. 15 minutes, 20 minutes in the car, just snoozing a little bit while the car's idling and wasting gas, and then that caffeine wakes you up, and man, I feel refreshed. It's not one of my.
I don't need the caffeine, but I am a firm believer in the power nap. I mean, I can get 8 to 12 minutes of just literally knocked out, and get up from that and feel pretty amazing for the next, till midnight.
Yeah, I think you do that on our calls every time.
Casey's voice is
only
so
when it's something
monotone, it just
important.
puts me out all the time. It's like
I am the opposite. I need like a
2
good
hours.
Yeah, like I need an hour or two. If I wake up from a nap and it hasn't been long enough, I'm like worse than I was before the nap. So I would rather just skip the nap.
I'm the opposite. If it goes too long, I wake up worse. I'm with Kevin on this. That sweet spot for me is about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah,
if I get
that's
past
crazy.
that, I might be a little grumpy.
I haven't actually taken a nap in a really long time, but this weekend I took a 4-hour nap in the middle of the day. We were watching TV and the book was done. I didn't have anything to work on. We were watching TV and I just dozed right off. And the next thing I know, I woke up 4 hours later and I was like, what is happening? I guess I needed to sleep. I was catching up on some sleep.
I do a couple naps at the beach this past summer because I really tried to only work like a 40-hour week on vacation instead of an 80-hour week. So I have time to nap at the beach, but I'm not a big napper, but every once in a while to get that 10 or 12 minutes in is pretty great. Or you know what? When we go places in the evening, sometimes like when Jen is driving, if we're going to dinner with friends or something, I'll get a quick power nap in the car. And so then I feel pretty refreshed. And so,
Good, Kevin. That a way to be social with going to dinner with friends and family and taking a nap.
yeah, so I wake up and I'm all chipper and happy and fun, like my normal self.
All right, so back on the ranch, fam.
Oh, yeah.
Back on the ranch.
I worked on a ranch once.
Yeah, so this is also a really great time of year to focus on some staff training, I think, right?
Yes.
So what are you guys doing with your staff, or what do you do with your staff to, just do staff training, prepare continuous staff training, those kind of things?
We have a staff training. We now do it right at this time, right when we're going back to school. We used to do it right after tryouts, but man, everybody was so dead after Worlds, Summit, whatever end of year events we were doing, and tryouts that they were literally napping during during staff training. So we've moved it and we've backed it up. And there's some of the traditional, how to all the things. Here's how we teach a back handspring. Here's how we do this. There's the skill pieces. But I know one thing for us this year that we're realizing that we need to focus on, because we've been blessed to be in business for many, many years. We're going into our 24th season. So that's really a blessing. But with that, there's so many things that we take for granted that we think that some of our coaches should know.
Right.
And we're realizing that, hey, just because this is second nature to me doesn't mean that these coaches know this. So there's some things that have become blatantly obvious. We had an example the other week of we had a coach that was telling a kid that they couldn't go to their state championship football game or playoff game. And once again, this was a team. They're always in the playoffs. So the mom was literally letting the coach know ahead of schedule, 5 or 6 months. And this is a big deal, and I think we want kids to cheer in school. So, and the thing about a lot of our schools, they're pretty strict. So if you miss something and you get a certain amount of demerits, then you're kicked off the team. And then you don't get a tryout next year if you're kicked off the team. So, we have to remind our coaches once again that, all-star cheer is just a part of their life. It's not their only life. It's not the only thing they do. So we've got to make allowances for kids to be able to do other activities and things like that. Obviously, kids need to be at practice and things have to be somewhat strict and we can't let them miss for anything. But it's also important to let them be a part of their school and be a part of their school activities. Because we don't want them to have to choose, and that's something that I take for granted because I've been doing this for so long. But a new coach, they don't know that. They've just heard that, hey, we need to be strict. We need to make sure people are at practice. So we're going to, things ebb and flow with staff training, but that's one of the things we're going to focus on this year is making sure to try to remember some of those details that we take for granted and make sure that we know that all of our staff is aware of.
We do. I like that, Casey. That's, sometimes you can't inform enough. It's hard to find the right time to do it because guess what? We're all busy. The good news is, and the bad news is, we're all busy. So we actually do 2 staff meetings at Charlotte All-Star Gymnastics and Cheerleading a year that includes everybody. So we're fixing to have one coming up in August. We do it on a Sunday or a Friday, depends on when it is, to get ready for our fall schedule. And it's for literally all 55 or 60 staff that we have, from class staff to preschool staff to gymnastics to cheerleading to birthday party staff, literally everybody, just because we think it's important that everyone meets everybody, knows everybody. And we have kids that are, literally high school students, first time instructors, up to, we have a couple staff in their 70s. Not me, I'm not that old yet, but we do have some, a wide variety. And so we do a 5-hour staff meeting in the fall. It's not 5 hours for everybody, but the first 2 hours is for everybody. And then we always do a meal. We do a little team bonding. We have the old meet the new. We have the young meet the older. And so we just think that's important once a year to get together. So, people working in the building, just because people are coming and going at different times. We have business professionals that have real jobs that coach a team or two. And then we have some people that are there full time. And so, So we do that. We do a long one in August, and then we do, and like I said, everyone doesn't do the whole meeting because we break out into, the tumbling coaches go do, an hour with Vontae, and the preschool coaches do an hour with Beth. And so we break them out in their different groups. If you're just a core or a team coach and, this is your 20th year, then you don't have to stay for all the stuff because that doesn't necessarily apply to you. And then we do a 3-hour staff meeting in January, coming back off the Christmas break, just highlighting. And again, the core people that don't have to be there for all of it, they're there for half of it. But all the meetings for the classes and tumbling and preschool, and they have specific training stuff that they do for that meeting. But we do try to meet twice a year with everybody, and we try to make it mandatory, and it's just helpful for people to know who works in the gym and in the building twice a year.
We've always done kind of like a group staff training with all the gyms do their own, of course, and then we encourage everybody to have staff meetings once a month. And I know, like, we used to, years ago, it was like you had to be in person, even if it wasn't your night to work, and that was always such a fight because if the staff meeting was on Wednesday at 9:00 and 5 people got done at 7, they didn't want to have to stay till 9, and 5 people weren't even at the gym that day. They didn't want to come in at 9 for a staff meeting. So it was always a pain to try to enforce that. But now with Zoom, we've kind of loosened up a little bit. It's just like if you're in the building, you're in the meeting in person. If you're not, then you're on Zoom and we record it. And if you have to miss altogether, then you need to watch the recording, which you can track. And so it gives everybody a little bit of flexibility. So we try to do those, I feel like pretty consistently once a month, just general things. But our premier staff retreat would always be something that I think everybody really had a good time. So we would go to Flip Fest, actually, where Cheerfest is, and Flip Fest camp up in Crossville, and we would stay Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we would come in Friday night, and then we'd have meetings all day Saturday and part of the day on Sunday. And it was just an awesome, bonding experience. We would always have like karaoke one night or something like that. And then it was too cold for the lake, but the coaches would get to do the ropes course, which was pretty cool. And then we did a ton of different classes. So in the tin can, we would have dance classes, and then, we'd have preschool classes, gymnastics classes. We'd have all-star focus stuff, rec tumbling classes, all kinds of different things. And one of the things that I think was always really cool, and I think our office staff really appreciated. So, depending on your facility, some of your office staff could be former cheerleaders, or dancers or gymnasts or whatever. And so they know the sport and they know what's going on, but some of them aren't. And it was always really great. We would do a lot of leadership classes and customer service as well, where, learning how to talk to parents and just, customer service as far as answering the phones and responding to emails and that kind of thing. But we always encouraged all of our office staff that were there to go and take the other classes. So they would go take a dance class, and then they would go watch, and participate in the preschool class, and be trained like an instructor was being trained, so that they could understand what, really a lot more about each specific class or the teams or whatever. So they got to do, and we would have like iClass Pro, things where they would all get together and like, what are you doing in the system? And how is this? So we had classes specifically for them, but I always remember that. And I remember so many of the office staff being like, this is really great. I never realized how much I would benefit from doing this. So I say all that to say that if you're doing any training, like that in your gyms or whatever, invite your office personnel to participate and get in there as well. Not that they're going to teach a class, but it gives them a pretty hands-on practical experience with it. And so when they are asking questions answering questions rather of people when they call in or they stop in the gym or whatever, right, they have a better understanding and genuinely can better answer their questions. So, so that's one of the things I remember from ours that people really liked.
I have a couple recommendations on these meetings and staff training, and these are all from doing it wrong. So things that we've done wrong over the years, but and I've heard Kevin and Stacy both alluding to this, but having the right people at the right meetings. You want to be respectful of people's times. So, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to have staff training over tumbling. Everybody's got to be there. Really? Everybody's the front office lady need to be there? Now, she needs to know a little bit about tumbling because she's selling that. But the coach who may not teach a tumbling class and hadn't taught one in a decade, do they need to be there? Do they need to be there the whole time? So making sure that you're respectful of people's times, making sure that there's an agenda and you follow it. There are knuckleheads like Kevin and I who are not great at following agendas when Stacy sends them out.
What?
But having that person that can kind of
talking
keep that
about
flow
taking things
going.
for granted, though, Casey, you're right. You don't have a staff meeting with. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, of course you have an agenda for a staff meeting, but you're absolutely right. That's something that I take for granted.
Yeah, I mean, people don't know that, and there are times. I mean, gosh, we've made this mistake, and I'm sure we'll make it again. Hey, we're going to come in. We're going to have this 1 hour staff meeting. It turns into 3 hours. And it might have needed to be 3 hours with 5 of us, but there are 28 people sitting in the room that are like this because they checked out 2 hours ago. So, agenda short, keep it, be respectful of people's times. But I think the biggest thing that we often miss in staff training is it has to be ongoing, because that's the thing. You sit there and you come in for a weekend or you come in for a 5-hour meeting. How much of that actually leaves with you? So it's a very small amount. And then after that, so how much leaves with you? Maybe 25%. I don't know. And then a week or 2 weeks later, how much of that is still there? An even smaller percentage.
Right.
So that's one of the things that, we kind of talk about in our group and our leadership group is we have a staff meeting once a month. It's typically on the second Monday of the month. And then we shift during competition season to have it after competitions. But if we can, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, but some kind of training, and oftentimes we don't even call it a training, but to your point of customer service, or this is how you communicate, but ongoing training all throughout the year, I think is imperative.
I agree 100%. And, I think that in today's world, it's a lot easier to do that if you take the time to do it. So, you can use Zoom, you can do, different things. You can put all of your staff, like we actually haven't used this in a minute, but we have a staff Facebook group. And, you could do a live in the staff Facebook group that just says, hey, this is the message that I need everybody to know, or a 10-minute tip, or whatever, the case may be. One of the things that we used to do actually that was really great along those lines, Casey, and we have stopped doing this. And now that we're having this conversation, I'm like, maybe we need to go back to doing that. But we used to call it PACE, Premier Athletics Continued Education. And every month at 9:00, we would do once a month, we would do a Zoom call and we'd bring a speaker in, and it would just be something different, that continued education of, sometimes it'd be about tumbling. Sometimes it would be about customer service, whatever. People could get on or not get on, but we always recorded them and saved them in a library for our coaches to go back and listen to and watch. And, just different things like that, I think are important.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And it's just, it's good to do. Right now we do it with our all-star supervisors. We meet once a month, during the day with all of our all-star supervisors from each location. And we bring in a speaker every month and we record those, and they can play them and use those as staff training tools for their staff and, different things like that. So that's specific to all-star. To your point, we don't have our class coaches on that, so yeah, I think anything that you can do like that with your people is great. One of the things I will say too, that is really important. This is just a little note. Anytime you do any kind of staff training, if you're doing it via Zoom and everybody is on Zoom, then you have record of the attendance of that participation. But just from an ownership standpoint, you want to document everything. And so if you're doing it as Zoom, it's easy because you have that attendance. If you're doing Zoom combination with live meetings, you can do a couple different things. But we would always, as Casey pointed out, we'd have a staff agenda. And so we would give everybody the staff agenda, and I would pass around like a sign-in sheet, and every person in attendance would sign their name that they were present at the staff meeting, or I would read out loud everybody's name that was in the staff meeting at the top of the Zoom meeting, so that I could just go to Zoom and I'd have my online attendees, and then I could listen to myself, or pull the transcript of who verbally was in person, because you never know when a year later you might need to go back and, say, hey, remember when I told you in these 10 staff meetings that you needed to do X, Y, Z, and after 10 staff meetings, you're still not doing it. So anyway, just not what today's call is about. That just popped into my head, making sure that you're documenting those things.
There are liability in every business. And that is another reason to document this to, you may one day need to prove that, hey, I've trained my staff. They are experts in this field, and they make these decisions because of this. And I can document where we've done 15 staff trainings.
So it's just, and keep those agendas and, document who has attended, all of those meetings for sure.
It's so much easier in today's digital electronic world as opposed to all the paper we used
for
to
sure.
have to
But
save.
I am still old fashioned and I still love to keep the paper. I still like to here's my printed agenda and please sign the back of it. And then I'm going to put this in my folder. And I have 42 folders with 800 pieces of paper in them for 2 decades.
My paper would wind up like in the back little pocket behind the seat of my truck where it would live for
I still
6
have
months.
So I know that, if you're listening, you can't see, but I'm holding up this tiny little navy blue notebook. So I still have this, like when I do my meetings and anything and everything I do, basically, I like jot
Modus on the front?
in a little notebook. No, this one's just plain
Oh, I have a
navy.
Modus one.
I do have a Modus one too, though. But anyway, so what I do is when I start the notebook, I write at the top corner the date that I started the notebook. And then when I finish the notebook, I write the date that I finished the notebook. And for the last 20 years, I have had that habit and I have kept all of those notebooks. And so you can go back in through my little library and you want to know the notes I took at a meeting in 2001 on a random Wednesday at noon. I have it in my notebook.
It's pretty awesome. I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. I'll just go. Shocker. I was like,
I probably took those notes, but I don't have them. And if I do have them, I can't find them. So
I might have taken some notes to stay awake in those meetings, but I did not keep them. That's for sure. So
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Kevin, why don't you tell us about CX Brands and the Prime Alliance?
So CX Brands encompasses 4 of Cheer Expo competitions, Cheer Expo being the granddaddy, and then we have Cheer X, we have Excel and Excite Championships. We're doing 16 events nationwide. Proud for the 8 we did last year. We doubled this year, adding events in Vegas, in Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, Hartford, Philadelphia, Myrtle Beach, and somewhere else I can't think of. But we're all over the country, literally in the Midwest, Southeast. Obviously, Nashville Nationals is our big event in Nashville, Tennessee, March 13th through the 15th. And then we have new this year, our Expo Grand Finale in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That is April 17th, 18th, and 19th. We'd love to have you come. We're also part of the Prime Alliance. And the Prime Alliance is with 5 other event producers. We're doing an end of the year event in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's May 8th, 9th, and 10th. We'd love to have you come party with us. So CX Brands is our website with all of our events and information is just as it sounds. It's the CX Brands with an S.com. And the Prime Alliance is also the same. It's theprimealliance.com. You can see all 70 plus events that we're doing. You can get discounts too as a Modus member. And we'd love to have you come to CX Brand Competition or come to the Prime Alliance party down in Fort Lauderdale in May. So, or you just call me and I'll tell you all about it. So
awesome. Love it. Love it. Love it. You guys ready for our Simon Sinek quote of the day?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. The quote is, things that matter are difficult. If we want to do things that matter, it is going to take effort.
I love that.
I do too, because it's true.
It fits hand in hand with all the things we're talking about. That you got to do them, and it really takes action. And I don't know. I find that sometimes the hardest thing for people to do is ask for help, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it,
right.
And oftentimes we feel like that we're less than, or we're not doing our job, and we try to force ourselves into being something that we're not. And I got some great advice early on of surround yourself with people who are great at things that you're not, and then allow them to do that. So sometimes it's asking for help. Like, I know I'm not very organized at all, but I surround myself with people that are organized and that they thrive on that. So,
yeah. I agree. I mean, I think, gym ownership is hard. Owning a business is hard. Life is hard.
Right.
It just is, but it doesn't mean that it isn't great. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter, and I agree. Like, if you want to do something that matters to you, to others, it's hard. And when you are running a gym and coaching athletes, like you matter to a lot of people, and the kids matter, and what you do matters, and all of that, hopefully what you're doing every single day makes a difference. And that's not going to be easy. And if you think it's going to be easy, then you're in the wrong business. So
Well, and I'll add, you got to work. You got to put in the work. You got to put in the hours, and you got to make the mistakes, and you got to try things. And sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't. I'm amazed at people that will try something for a few hours or a few days and give up on it. It's like you only tried it a little bit. It's like I love Casey. Don't tell anyone I said it. And Stacy and Cole, because my partners are workers, and I'm a worker, and so I'm happy with the staff that's successful at any of our locations because we have workers, and so you got to be able to put the work in, and you got to be able to put the hours in, and it's more than 40 hours to be successful. That's for sure.
Well, I say, remember, who you are makes a difference, and what you do matters. So on that note, thanks everyone today for listening. Be sure to follow us on YouTube at The Modus Edge. Give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Join Modus. And wherever you listen to our podcast, give us a like or a shout out. Leave us a review if you like what we're doing and you want to hear more. And hey, if you're a gym, join the movement and sign up for Modus today. Thank you all for listening, and we're excited for you to have The Modus Edge.
Thank you for listening to The Modus Edge. We hope you had a blast. Join us next week for more on business, leadership, and motivation. Subscribe and follow the show where you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our newsletter at joinmodus.com. The Modus Edge podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.